Hi there, and thanks for joining us for our Veeam on Forum breakout session for Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365. My name is Stezenko, and I'm a Senior Systems Engineer here at Veeam. Alongside me, I also have my colleague Raghu Manivannan, and today we're going to be talking to you about why it's important to protect your 365 data, as well as taking a look at some of the new exciting features that came out in our recent release of Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 version 6. So, without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Now here's a quick look at the agenda that we have for today. First, I'm going to start off with looking at the market and adoption of Microsoft 365, followed by looking more specifically at the reasons why we need to back that data up, and the advantages that you gain by protecting it through Veeam. Then we're excited to share with you a look at some of the new features that recently came out in version 6 of the product, more specifically the self-service restore portal, and the ability to perform backup copy jobs to low-cost object storage as well. To finish up, Raghu's going to jump into our lab environment where he's going to perform a live demonstration of both these features so we can see them with our own eyes, leaving us just a little bit of time at the end for any sort of questions you have in the Q&A session. So let's take a look at market and adoption. Veeam is the most trusted provider of backup and data management solutions, and that doesn't just stop with infrastructure backups. Veeam is also the #1 provider of Microsoft 365 backup as well. With over 220,000 downloads of the product and over 11 million users protected by the solution, Veeam leads the way in protecting your 365 data. Now, over the last 2.5 years, we've found ourselves using and becoming heavily reliant on the Microsoft 365 platform as part of our day-to-day working lives. Organizations big and small continue to adopt this cloud platform at a rapid pace. And as it stands today, the Microsoft 365 user base is estimated to be around 300 million plus users, of which 270 million of those users are active daily users on Microsoft Teams. Now, with that in mind, I'm sure that these numbers on the slide don't really come as a surprise to you. A large portion of this growth was created by the transition to remote working driven by the COVID-19 pandemic, but also with the drive for cloud adoption by many organizations as well. So with Microsoft 365, it eliminates the need for organizations to manage the hardware and the software required for these systems, allowing IT teams to focus on other priorities to help propel the business forward. However, even though Microsoft takes care of the management of the infrastructure built underneath these services that provide Microsoft 365, and they're responsible for the uptime, the maintenance, and the security, it's the individual customer's responsibility to be in control of their data so they can meet their compliance and legal requirements, which includes protecting the data through the means of a backup. Now, so much so that in Clause 6 of the Microsoft Service Agreement, under service availability, Microsoft clearly make the recommendation for customers to back up their data using third-party software or services. So, with Microsoft 365, it's your data, and you control it, and it's your responsibility to protect it. Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 eliminates the risk of losing access and control of your data and provides you the capability to protect it across the 4 main services that make up the 365 platform, which are Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, and Microsoft Teams. It's a fully software-driven solution that enables you to back up and protect all of your users' data, regardless of whether you are mid-migration, running a hybrid setup, or fully migrated to Microsoft 365. So with this solution, protecting your data couldn't be simpler. You can back up your data through the means of easy wizard-based backup policies, where policy configuration can be simple or as complex as you like, and allowing you to protect your entire 365 subscription, groups, or specific users with one or multiple policies that can be set to run daily, weekly, or even as little as every 5 minutes. Now, once you have your data protected, at some stage you're likely going to want to restore it. Veeam provides you some powerful e-discovery capabilities that provide you a fast and easy way to search your backups, find the data you need, and quickly restore content when you need it. With these capabilities, you can move from potentially spending days or hours or recovering data to meet legal or compliance requirements down to just a matter of minutes. Now, Looking at the market, we have some interesting and also possibly alarming statistics. According to research, 71% of businesses are not using third-party backup tools. They believe that potentially that Microsoft retention policies provide sufficient protection of their data. Now, obviously, I have to disagree. The capabilities within Microsoft 365 don't really fit the criteria or definition of what we classify as a traditional backup. And these are things such as complying with the following best practices of the 3-2-1 backup rule, which is having 3 copies of your data on 2 different media, and one of them being off-site so they can be used to recover from. Now, as you can see, we also have a staggering 36% of customers of the opinion that they don't need a backup, as they believe Microsoft 365 is natively resilient, and another 35% who rely on the platform's inbuilt retention capabilities. Now, if you take a look on the right, there's a further breakdown that is very interesting in the way that we see SMBs are actually leading the way over commercial and enterprise organizations of backing up their 365 data. However, we still can see that strong common perception and misconception across all 3 sectors that have that belief around the service being natively resilient and not requiring a backup. Now, in saying all of this, we are seeing a change in mentality and a shift towards organizations looking to protect their 365 data for many reasons. Now, this next slide gives a little bit more insight exactly to why that is. So one of the main reasons we see is accidental deletion. And if you think back to the last time you were asked to perform a restore of data, this probably is very similar to the reason that you were provided as to why you had to restore it, as this is a very common cause that occurs in data loss. Of course, this is closely followed by protecting against cybersecurity threats, and then meeting compliance or regulation requirements is also high up there as well. And of those responses, I'd expect a large percent of those customers would likely be in the legal, financial, health, or government sectors, where data retention and compliance is high up on their agendas. For other users, it's just the ability to have better restoration capabilities. And if you've used Microsoft 365 retention policies and e-discovery options, you'll understand how difficult it can be to locate and recover data using those tools on the platform itself. Now, just for transparency, these findings are not exclusively Veeam customers. The findings actually come from a data protection report conducted by a third-party analyst company. And they ask these questions to a pool of different organizations in different industries, which help us understand what are the driving factors for customers wanting to protect their data. If you'd like to grab a copy of this report, it is available online from our website. Now, as I've just mentioned, we listen to the market to understand the reasons for why customers want to back up this data. However, we also listen very closely to our customers' requirements and try to deliver this in each of the releases. So here we can take a quick look at the continued innovation of the product and looking at where we started and then moving on to where we are today. So as you can see, our initial offering back in 2016, Veeam Backup for Office 365 version 1, provided protection for Exchange Online and also Exchange on-premise. Following that all the way through to 2019, we quickly built up traction in the following releases, offering backup of both OneDrive and SharePoint, as well as introducing a number of performance, security, and UI enhancements, making the product faster, more secure, more usable, and offering advanced functionality through the powerful PowerShell and REST API support. More recently, in version 4, we introduced support for object storage repositories, such as AWS S3, Azure Blob, and any other S3 compatible provider. Version 5, released in December 2020, where the world moved to a remote style of working, and more specifically using Microsoft Teams, we introduced the capability to back up that data as well. And that takes us to today, version 6, where we've introduced both the self-service restore portal and the ability to create a backup copy of your 365 backup data and send it to low-cost object storage such as Amazon Glacier, Deep Archive, or Azure Archive tier. So let's take a closer look at the self-service portal. So why did we introduce the self-service portal? Well, Veeam provides IT teams the ability to perform quick restores of their 365 backup data. However, sometimes these teams just can't instantly respond to an end user's IT request as they have a lot of other tasks they need to attend to. And these sort of requests can be something as simple as restoring a 365 document back to a user's OneDrive. Now, with the introduction of Self-Service Portal, this provides organizations the means to empower their end users to perform the restores when they need them. Otherwise, sometimes it may be hours or even days before the IT team can come back and service the user's request. And in that time, the user either may just recreate the document, or they might just find they no longer need it. So the Self-Service Restore Portal offers great savings by lowering the RTO for your end users and also reducing the workload of your IT team, allowing them to work through other tickets and be generally more efficient. And just to add to all of this is all done securely through our Restore Portal using native 365 authentication, ensuring only your authenticated users can perform these actions. So with this portal, it provides your users with a centralized location where they can officially divide restore permissions and access backup data across your organization. This is incredibly useful, and it means that you can provide restore access to your users without the need to provide them direct access to the backup server itself, therefore reducing the overall demand of your IT team to perform restores and making them more efficient and allowing them to focus on more important tasks. Now, there's two ways you can provide this self-service access. The permission can be provided directly to your end users, allowing them to perform restores of their Exchange, SharePoint, or OneDrive data as they need to. Or if you're providing all of your users this level of access isn't something that suits your internal policies, you have the option to delegate the restore operator permission to specific users within your organization instead. Now, this could be a junior or a first-line member of your IT team, or it could be providing this permission to a manager or a team leader within the organization, so that they can perform the restore on behalf of the employees they manage. Either way, in doing so, this provides either your employees or managers the ability to log into a secure restore portal using their native 365 authentication and perform restores of their 365 data without having to engage IT resources to do so. Now let's have a quick look at how this works. So the user logs onto the self-service restore portal and authenticates using their Microsoft 365 login. This is subsequently passed onto our internal REST API, which then sends it on to Microsoft for validation. Now, once Microsoft validates that authentication, this then allows the user to access the restore portal and perform that restore of the data that they need to. So Veeam provides our customers with up to 45 different ways to restore their data, and the number of these options continues to grow upon every product release. So without further ado, I'll begin to go through each and every one of them. No, I don't have time for that, and we're not going to do that. But there are 45 options, and if we split them up across those platforms, that gives you 9 for Exchange, 9 for SharePoint, 11 for OneDrive, and 16 for Microsoft Teams. That's a pretty comprehensive set of recovery options, wouldn't you say? Now, Veeam performs the restores through our Veeam Explorers, and each of these are custom built with the application being backed up in mind, meaning you have a unique Explorer for each of the different platforms with the restore option specific to the type of data you're looking to restore in its native format. For example, you may receive a request to restore data for a legal or compliance request. Now, in a few clicks, you can easily perform a recovery of all of that data, whether it be restoring a full mailbox, a public folder, or individual mail items. And this data can be restored directly back to the user within your 365 tenancy, or if it needs to be provided to an auditor, it can also be exported in PST or MSG format. Another example may be an employee accidentally deletes a document. You can easily restore that document either as a direct replacement or as a side-by-side copy through the Veeam Explorer. Now, for the eagle-eyed customers amongst us, you will also note the option of self-service restore access across 3 of the 4 different platforms, which, as I mentioned to you, enables your end users to perform a lot of these restore actions directly through the self-service restore portal. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Raghu, who's going to now just tell us a little bit more about the new backup copy job and then he's going to show both of these new features in a live demonstration. Over to you, Raghu.
Wow, thank you so much, Will, for the great trip down the memory lane. It's good to see how the product have actually evolved over the years and to see what we could actually deliver today to our customers. Yes, it's truly incredible. With that being said, the next feature that I'm going to talk about is a backup copy to the low-cost object storage. Similar to the feature that just covered by Will, the self-service portal, this feature also needs an explanation on why would you need this feature in the first place. So every company is bound by some sort of compliance. You might be a company that falls under legal sector, financial sector, educational sector, be it any sector. You have some compliance requirement, and that would require you to store the data for a certain period of time. So we just learned that some of the companies need to store their data forever. So with that being said, storing the data is not cheap, and that too for the people who have to store it for over 7 years or till forever. For a matter of fact, it's going to be having a lot of impact on your operational expenditure. So we thought, how could actually we help you achieve that? So how about we enable you to store the data in a storage that is designed to store data for a longer period of time. It's called an archive storage. So by doing that, you still meet your compliance requirement, but with minimal impact on your operational expenditure. So the first and foremost driving factor would be saving the money. And the next one, of course, is the data separation. So you might want your data sets divided with individual retention periods. You can achieve with that. The third one is, yes, it's cheap. Yes, I can achieve data separation. Am I aligned to the best practices? Because the backup industry standard is to have 3 copies of data over 2 different media, and one of it needs to be offsite. So for the 3 copies, you have one in your production, which is of course, the second one is your backup job. Now we have the third copy, which is your backup copy. So by at the same time you're saving the cost, at the same time you're actually achieving data separation, you're actually achieving a 3-to-1 rule as well, which is the backup best practice. So with that being said, you now can store your backup copy to Amazon S3 Glacier, Glacier Deep Archive, or Azure Archive. So this whole backup copy feature is wizard driven. There is no manual movement of data is needed. Similar to creating a backup job, you will now be creating a backup copy job, and it operates on its own retention. The other interesting thing this backup copy job brings to the table is your ability to have truly multi-cloud. So you might be a bit worried about vendor lock-in. I have all my data is in Azure or AWS. I want a copy of data that I have in Azure in AWS as well. So if you have a backup job that's writing to an Azure repository and you wanted to have a backup copy of the data in AWS, you can do that as well. So you basically have your data across multiple platforms and you don't have to worry about those vendor lock-in. So yes, great, we have the backup copy now. How is it going to sit in your infrastructure? So first one being your backup server. You add your organization to the backup server, be it hybrid, be it Office 365 only, or maybe on-prem only. Depends on what strategy you have in your production. You might be a service provider who wants to manage multiple tenancy at one point, at one single pane of glass, can do that. Or you might be an organization who is acquiring another organization and you want them to be managed together, can still do that. So now the organization been added, you created a backup job. Where you're gonna store it? Well, you can store it wherever you want or wherever it makes sense to your business. It could be an object storage, could be an on-prem storage, or it could be an on-premises object storage. What does that mean? So basically, you might have a SAN locally, right? And you probably want to take the functionality what that SAN provides to you, which is the ability to make that device into an object storage. So you can still do that. But if you wanted to take advantage of that long-term object storage, then you need to use either the object storage from the public clouds or an on-prem object storage. So once you have a data copied to the long-term object storage, now you have a backup copy. How would I restore it? And how is this backup copy or storing the data in a different tier is going to affect your restore functionality. To say the truth, there is no difference. Irrespective of where you store the data, irrespective of which tier you're restoring your data from, you would not lose any of those 45 amazing ways of restore that Will just showed us during his presentation. So you can still use the explorers to do the restore, and you can also use the self-service portal to do the restore, and where the data is being picked up will not change your abilities to perform the restore. Now we spoke great about these two features. Let's just see them in action during our demo time now. So I'm going to log into the server and walk you down the steps that we just spoke about and see how they actually look like in action. So in this demo, I wanted to show you guys two features. The first one is the self-service portal. As mentioned by Will, there are two different use cases to it. Either we can let the end users perform their own restores, or we can let the backup administrator create a restore operator role, assign it to a user or to a group of users, and delegate them to perform restore on behalf of other users or perhaps the entire organization. So if you look at the restore operator role that I've created in here, I have added the user named John Doe as my restore operator, and under his scope I have added a site, a Microsoft 365 group, and a user named Mary Smith. Since I added an entire Microsoft 365 group, and if I need to exclude a user from that group, I can exclude in this exclude screen. Then save, close, done. So I've created a restore operator. Let's assume John is a help desk engineer. He got a call or perhaps a case from Mary requesting him to perform a restore of an email that she lost from her inbox. So John will be logging in to the self-service portal. He will be using the same Microsoft 365 credential that he will be using. So when he logs in, if you have multi-factor authentication enabled, and if you have already been authenticated into this browser, then he can use the single sign-on to sign in. Since this is a self-service portal, the first set of data that John will be looking as soon as he logs in is his own data. And if he need to do a restore of any data that he himself lost, he can do it from here as well. But since the task is to perform a restore for Mary, John will be changing his scope to Mary. So here is the location where he will be seeing all the data that's been backed up for Mary. So her mailbox, her archive, her OneDrive, and SharePoint. So John will basically be going back and referring to his help desk case, finding out what's the data that Mary asked him to recover. If you need to do a quick search, he can do there. Or let's say if this is the item that Mary requested him to restore, he can either initiate a restore from here or add it to a shopping cart kind of a restore list. So if we need to actually do multiple item restore at one hit, he can add multiple item to this restore list and do a restore at one hit. So if you click on this item and do a restore, confirm this is the item that he wanted to restore, he can restore it to the original location or to a new folder under Mary's mailbox. So there is a certain security focus or thought process went in here. So even if John can perform a restore for Mary, he can't exfiltrate her mail out of Mary's own mailbox. So he can only have the ability to restore it back into Mary's mailbox. So let's say he call it restore for Mary as the folder under which he's going to do a restore for Mary. And do next. So here is the location where he will be typing in the reason for the restore. So possibly he can give the case number under which he is doing the restore. Go next, go finish. Now he will be redirected to the screen where the restore is now initiated. So you'll be looking at the reason why the restore is being performed, under whose mailbox this restore is getting performed under, what are the tasks that's been performed. So this is like a location where you can look at the detail of the current and previous restores. So if someone have to come back a month later and find why this restore has been performed or who authorized it, you can see this is the case number against which the restore has been performed for. So since this restore is a success, we can log into Mary's mailbox and do a quick refresh. You will now see a folder called restore for Mary under which John performed a restore for Mary. So John, a help desk engineer, performed a restore for Mary without even logging into the Veeam server or having any extended privilege on the Veeam server. So we have been doing great set of recovery already using the explorers that Will mentioned. But now we are giving the ability on the hands of the end user or on the hands of the restore operator, and all this configuration are done through the Veeam console without needing any PowerShell or REST API scripting. So that's the first feature. The next feature that I wanted to show you guys is the backup copy. As I mentioned, for the backup copy, the first thing you will be adding the repository in here. Since this is an archive repository, you will be selecting the Amazon S3 Glacier as the location. For the normal repository, you'll be selecting the Amazon S3. For the archive bit, you'll be selecting the Amazon S3 Glacier. So once that's been added, you can then come here and create a copy job. But if this is the first time you're creating a copy job, when you right click your existing job, you have an option here to create a backup copy job. Since I've already created a backup copy job, I can go and edit this job, and if you could see, it already has been configured and it has its own schedule. So the backup job runs in a schedule, and if you want an entirely a different schedule on which your backup copy has to be running, you can configure your backup copy with that scheduling. And if you want to actually don't want your job to be running in a particular window during your business hours, you can configure that window in here. That's it. Simple, wizard driven as all other Veeam features. So that's all I have for you guys in the demo. Let's just go back to our presentation and continue there. So other than those two features that I showed during the demo, there are other new features as well. The first one being SharePoint restore to another location. So you wanted to restore your data from one tenancy to another tenancy, you can do that. Or you probably want a multi-geo support, like some of you might have an organization in a different region and you wanted to support your multi-geo production. Veeam version 6 will natively support it. And apart from those major feature updates, there are some minor feature updates as well. The first one being support for SharePoint Online renamed domains. So we now support renamed SharePoint domains, which Microsoft introduced, I think, mid last year. We now supporting it with the version 6. And new and improved installers. So you can have one single click installer where it installs everything you need, or you can actually install each of these components separately. That's what you wanted to achieve. And the third one is the Veeam Service Provider Console integration with the Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365. If you're a service provider, now these two products can natively communicate using the RESTful API calls, and the Veeam Service Provider Console will be the single source of truth for all your license management. And other than that, there's a couple of backend changes, which is per job logging. In terms of logging, if you want to see the logs, it will be separated on per job basis and changed to the compression algorithm as well. So with Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 version 6a, which was released I think week and a bit ago now, we now become a certified backup and restore provider for Microsoft Teams. Veeam is one of the first backup vendors to adapt the new backup and restore mechanism that Microsoft actually suggesting us to use, and by doing that, now we are a certified product to back up the Microsoft Teams component. Along with that, there are some performance upgrade, because there was a performance upgrade that went into the product in version 6. Now 6 months down the line, we have another performance upgrade, which is 4x backup, 2x faster restore, 3x lower egress cost. That's been added to the version 6a as well. We can talk great about us all day long, but it's also matter what our customers talk about us, right? So TechRadius and G2 are some of the industry leading platforms where customers can leave feedbacks for us, and this is what they've been talking about us, right? And we actually encourage you to leave feedback on us, whether it's good or bad. I'm pretty sure it's going to be good most of the time, but we want to hear it either ways. That's how we improve as a business. So now it's time for some actions from your part. So get your cameras ready. I'm going to show you some exciting materials. You probably liked what myself and Will showed and wanted to write a business case on it, or you just a person like me who likes to read some exciting materials. Either ways, some materials are coming your way and you can grab them through the QR code. Ready? The first one is Microsoft Teams backup for ebooks. Right? So basically, you might be an organization currently adapting Microsoft Teams, and you would be wondering, why would I need Microsoft Teams and what value it's going to add to my business and what data do I need to back up? That's the material for you, and that QR code will take you directly to it. So the next material I got for you guys is getting started with Microsoft 365 backup component of Veeam. So this actual guide will tell you how to get started, how to actually achieve a first backup, how to test the restores. It's just pretty much a getting started page, and this will be very handy if you're someone who is totally new to the product. So the next one is trial. So if you wanted to take this product for a test drive and wanted to know how the product works, want to play around with it, this is a fully featured trial. Once the trial period is done, it will be reverted to a community edition where you basically can back up 10 users forever, but the trial will let you to look at the full potential of the product and see how it actually fits into your environment. That being said, that's all we have for you today in terms of presentation, but I'll open it to the audience to ask any questions that if you have any, or we are more than happy to hang around and answer your questions. Thank you so much.